Okay, hi everyone, and welcome. Today we're gonna be focusing on service expansion, exploratory and innovative strategies integrating trauma, focus, and culture appropriateness. As we're going through with this training, we want to be able to understand how we can systematically and organically develop programs that will be able to bridge the gaps that individuals within the community are facing. So my name is Dr. Alice Leon Stevens. I am a prevention scientist as well as the CEO of Holistic Elevation. I have my doctorate in prevention science as well as my master's in clinical and mental health. And the goal is to be able to integrate both prevention and intervention into the work and services that are being provided in the community. I have over 23 years in prevention and intervention. I develop programs in to help in underserved population, but is highly specialized in trauma. As we are going through, two of the quotes I wanted to share with you guys were one. The first one, innovation is the unrelenting drive to break the status quo and develop a new where few have dared to go. Innovation takes birth in sync with the evolution of customers' expectations and demands, or vice versa. Either way, organizations around the world have to continually innovate themselves and keep up with the people's wants. The failure to do so or being indifferent to your customers' needs will make your competitor win. And then suddenly customers become indifferent to you. A high risk gamble to play. When we think of innovation, we would like and we want to be an outlier. Sometimes it is great to be able to go with what society is providing and the norms, but when you're an outlier in the service that are being provided, you are analyzing what are the gaps that are being faced currently and how those gaps can expand or become greater within the next few years or the few months. So whatever service or whatever technology or invention that you're looking to create, it would need to be able to fill a gap that the community is in need of. So here we're gonna just show one of the videos. So with this video, it was where students who were exposed to trauma had gone through some traumatic event within the state of Delaware, came and they participated in the program. And as a result, we're like, okay, many of those students have had difficulty emotionally balancing, and they had difficulty connecting with each other. So what were some of the ways for us to be able to bridge or meet their need? And for us, that way was for us to be able to go and apply music to the overall 1 week goal. So from that time on moving forward, we had some form of music or some form of activities to help the students. And then we want to move on. So why is that important? Why did I all of a sudden just dropped it in? Sometimes when we're providing services and we're looking to expand our services, we sometimes want the service to be the same because we already predict what outcome we want. And that might be our desire to be able to want those outcomes. but it is the importance of developing innovation is that you help with the development of human civilization and human development, because whatever you're looking at, whatever the gap is, it needs to be able to provide some valuable contribution to society. When you reflect on the past, to be able to see what were some of the problems that were in the past and what are the problems that are being faced right now, are those the current problems right now a development as a result of the past problems, and what could possibly be the projection of the future problems if the current problem is not resolved, or if the current problem has not been tackled accurately to ensure sustainability. One of the great examples when we think of innovations, let us look at the cycle of services. Within many communities, services that are funded by whether it is by government, whether it is by private funders, once that funding runs out, then the problem within the community, that service will no longer be. And the problem within a community will escalate. And now you have a whole new or a reborn of a new problem. But our goal when we want to be able to develop innovative strategies, when we want to develop new solutions or sustainable solutions, we would like to be able to understand in the long run how long are we predicting that these programs we're providing, or this idea that it's being developed, what gaps is it fulfilling, what challenges is it fulfilling or reducing, and how are we able to reduce on the future impact. So it is so important to look at the tools that will be utilized, look at the strategies that we want to be able to utilize, as well as the modules and the framework. Because we might come and say, hey, you know what? Am I going to the community and deliver food to the homeless? But yes, we're using transportation and meals to be able to bridge a gap. But is that gap sustainable? For example, the homeless, many of them may qualify for government assistance, but because they do not have a home to stay or do not have a specific location, they are not able to get to medical assistance or the required assistance that is needed. But what if we say, hey, you know what, we're going to provide food to the community. Now we're going to look into developing a program where we're going to house not the homeless, because we know individuals who are homeless. Some choose to be homeless. Others are faced with a high level of difficulty. So we're not at that point yet. Because if we provide shelter and other things to them, they might say, hey, I don't want to stay here. I want to go somewhere else. So you have an other elevated problem. But we need to be able to analyze what solutions we're solving and for how long. So then we can say, hey, you know what? We can partner with an organization, or we can develop an organization or a program that would be the harboring body of case management for the homeless. So now the homeless population, instead of not having an address, their address can be based wherever that organization program is based. So now it increases the protective factor. Now they have the ability to apply for government assistance, whether it is Medicaid, food stamp, whatever gaps they may be facing, that they might be homeless. And so now that's another gap. Now you have the development or the expansion of, okay, what are some of the challenges? We know the Hope Center is there and it's helping families and individuals who are going through homelessness. But now we have to categorize the homeless population, because we have individuals who are either drug users, we have individuals who are single male parents, we have individuals who are family units, we have family units, meaning that you have both parents in there and the children. You also have family units where it's a single mom But then that category or the general focus of homelessness is now subdivided. So what are some of the programs we can develop, or some of the solutions we can develop to bridge those gaps? So then we can say, hey, you know what? The Hope Centers provide services to families and individuals. That's one area. You have St. Joseph that provides services to males. So you have different locations that provide this different services, but these locations are temporary. But you know that the housing base for the homeless population is at that one organization you previously developed, which is the case management program. So wherever they go, their documents are still secure. And now you can transfer them into other programs, whether it is finding a job, being able to provide, being able to get sustainable housing. And that is where, when you look at ripple effects, is how small can we close that gap, that if a risk is developing, it will not be a greater risk than what it once was. But we have to look at all of those areas. So now when we look at the tools, we're also looking at the combination of what module we're using or what framework we are using to ensure sustainability. And we also want to, we'll want to go further down and explore, is there the emotional connection that is utilized within those areas to ensure sustainability? How can sustainability develop after you have those programs? Because some people might just say, you know me, I don't want to deal with that. The people who are running it is no longer there. Them that's running it, a new company comes in, so I'm not invested anymore. What is missing to ensure the continuous organic development of programs? And then making sure that we're able to maximize the problem. Focusing on the maximization of the problem helps us on developing what would the best strategy be when working with a specific population. So if we're thinking of the homeless population, a few maximization can develop. And if we're looking at this, we can say, okay, the worst thing that can happen is individual or provider goes and offer a service to a homeless individual, and that homeless individual has a mental breakdown or has psychosis or something and cause harm to that caseworker. And that may result as the caseworker going out by themselves, or an individual that is mixed up with different population, then that can result in sexual assault or physical assault. So we need to be able to analyze what is the worst problem that can develop and what we're gonna do to prevent that problem from developing, even if it has not developed yet. So for example, a homeless person having psychosis, then we'll want to say, okay, it probably will be best for us to pair the caseworkers. And when they're going out, they will need to be able to go to those locations, but they cannot go individually. They need to provide those services in pairs. So now it has a highest chance of protecting the caseworkers, at the same time making sure the best service is also offered to the homeless that is being serviced. And then we spoke about the current gaps and the needs and the opportunities, looking at what are the current gaps, what are the needs, but also what opportunities can develop from there. This is another video that we were calling to one of the schools, and when we were calling the schools, the students had a lot of behavioral challenges. Does not mean that those students did, but it was just the school. And they called us in a month before the school shut down. And for us, we're like, yeah, you waited too long to be able to call us, because right now it is finalized that the school is shutting down and there's nothing we can do to be able to strengthen or to prevent the school from shutting down. But if we will put in probably a semester or marking period prior, we would be able to help you out and develop strategies to prevent the school from closing down. But either way, we still ended up going to the school, and in providing the services that were needed for the students. It was just something simple we wanted to do for the students. And one of the teachers at the end came and we went from class to class. And in one of the classes, the teacher came and they're like, "How did you make the students sit down and listen to you?" And we're like, "Isn't that common? Like, if you give respect, you will get respect, or if you know how to connect to the students." But then again, we are mental health professionals, so we may have known how to strategize with the students and how to communicate with them to help reduce on any behaviors they would have been demonstrating. So I am pulling that out. It's taking a little time. Okay, here it is. So that was a sneak peek of how using we while we were teaching them about healthy peer interactions and being supportive to their peers. They were the ones who came up with their own script. They were the ones who actually came up with what they wanted to share with the classroom. But the goal of that was for us to be able to create that opportunity for them to think outside the box. Because many times when things happen, they may have had difficulty in processing. But this program for of ours did not just start there. It was where we were providing services to students, and students were like, "Okay, now we're done. This is the summer. We're done. What's next?" It was always a now what, and we always tend to listen to what is being asked and what the community is asking. Then we developed and we strengthen the in-school program. From the in-school program, we expand to the community level program. From the community level, we strengthen the parents interaction program, and then we had a combination of school and the parents interaction programs as well. So looking at the organic development of programs provides that sustainability for the community we want to service. So earlier on, sorry about the arrows. I guess when I uploaded the presentation, the arrows went over it. But when we're looking at challenges within the community and we want to expand our programs, we need to be able to understand the formula. We need to be able to understand how we're gonna gain results and see outcomes. So For us, we are the formula we created and we use for all our services, from mental health services to prevention services to education services. It is, what is the current problem? Why are you here? What problems are you seeing and how are those problems impacting you? Then we're gonna go back and try to explore, how long have you had that problems or those problems, and depending on how long you have had it, what within those past problems have developed and what was lacking within those the gap or the transference to the current problems. And now that we're in the past, we want to say, okay, so based on what you're telling me, I want to predict that if you're not able to get services and sustainable service for the problem you're coming to us, how would that problem transfer or progress into the future? So for students who might come with COVID is a great example. When students were going to school face to face, COVID happened. They then transferred to virtual. And while they were doing virtual, the entire, it's like the entire education system that they were accustomed to was transferred onto one small component. And within that one small component, the external factors, they had to adapt to it. They had to adapt with being at home. Some of them may have to adapt in being in an unhealthy family situation, unhealthy peer situation, having difficulty adapting because of education, learning challenges. And as a result, that have developed into either anxiety, depression, and isolation, all the problems. So now you can see it has developed into something else. But while they were having it, it may have just been simple generalized anxiety, and now mommy has to go to the hospital because she is sick, or daddy, if someone end up in the hospital, now that child may develop a separation anxiety because they're fearful that something terrible is going to happen to their loved ones, because we see over and over that that family members and loved ones are losing their lives as a result of COVID. So now when a parent comes home, they don't want to leave the parent side. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to be online. They do not want to be able to, or they're not able to adapt because the services and the programs that is needed to assist them in the adaptation is not readily available, or they're not aware of it. So we want to be able to analyze what problems they're facing right now and how that can impact them in the long run. So within the long run, we can see there's a possibility of a huge dropout rate. Or even if you're going to school, would it cause more psychological trauma? Would it cause brief psychotic challenges with there? We know that it has caused an increase in suicide. So what are we gonna be doing? Now we want to go back to the current situation, that now that we have analyzed it, let us move forward in creating the programs and developing the tools that are needed for us to help the community in bridging those gaps and preventing that current problem to escalate into a greater problem. So sometimes individuals say you need to trust the process. But as prevention specialists, we understand that sometimes, yes, you need to be able to trust the process, but you may end up getting the same results if you trust the process. And at the beginning, when we spoke about being the outlier is where you do not necessarily have to challenge the process, but you need to be able to look at what additional tools can either be added to the process, or how the process needs to be adapted, or if you need a whole new process overall. So being able to analyze what would be best when executing programs. And then we want to be able to, when we look at, especially when we look at COVID, and one of the analyzation is the importance when we want to sustain programs and when we want to think of innovative ideas, whether it is at the government level or at the individual level, whatever it is, our goal should be to provide sustainability. Not for sustainability for 5 years, but sustainability after, for example, after 5 years, this can grow by itself. the community is able to allow it to grow by itself. But we'll talk about that on the next slide. Right now, we want to be able to be sustainability for years of results and fulfillment of the idea. So if you're going to create an idea, is it going to fulfill a need for years to come? And part of that fulfillment, when we look at developing human service programs, it is very important for us to have the combination of the IQ and the EQ. So for emotional intelligence, we know that it is the heart to the brain and the brain to the heart. That's where, because when you look at trauma and you look at prolonged results or difficulties in coping from a trauma, it is not the trauma itself that is causing the difficulty of developing the coping strategies, but rather it is the emotional attachment to that trauma. When you think of the smells and you think of the triggers, it is the emotional connection. It is also whatever connection that the signals of the brain is sent, then you have a reaction from it. So if we're able to target either the IQ and the EQ, then we're helping develop a sustainability. And we're going to speak about that a little more, because when you think of understanding a problem, you want to be able to break it down to your clients to say, for psychoeducation, this is what is happening to you and this is how it's impacting you. But if you only provide education to them, they might not be able to connect. And if there is limited to no connection, then the aha moment or the development of those goals you're trying to accomplish will not be as strong as what you are hoping to accomplish. So for some of our students, when they come to us, for all of our programs, we have an emotional component. And the emotional component starts off whatever idea, whatever program we're doing. So whether it is emotional component for music, we might find the music, we might find a quote, we might have somebody do meditation or something, we might tell a story, we might have someone share a story. But we have different ways to be able to connect to them. We can also utilize the community where we are to be able to share a story, use history to be able to share a story. There are different ways you can develop emotional connection. Emotional connection does not necessarily have to be on a personal level, but look at it on a professional level. So now we're gonna go, as a result of those other programs, we showed one of what that the youth were able to do. We were able to follow them to see if they were progressing. We didn't want to just look and provide a program and be gone. We wanted to ensure sustainability. So I'm gonna play one of the videos. So with this program, when the students came to us, they came with a lot of challenges. And many of the challenges, some of the students were on the verge of being suspended. Some of them had seen extremely difficult situations that no other person would ever think of. But as they were going through, we wanted to make sure that they themselves feel as if we were providing programs and we were meeting them where they are. Some of the students who participated in this program, their parents had started going to counseling. A year later, one of the parents reached out to us and was so excited, and she's like, "Hey, we're actually started doing family counseling." For the very first time, we actually went and get a counselor to work with us. We had other students who were able to help their peers who were either going through difficulties. One of the students, she was being bullied online, and she contacted another peer, and the peer was able to walk her out of it and then get professional help to assist with the development. So for her, that was great help. And when they went through the prevention program, they came and they're like, okay, what's next? So we developed the peer leadership program. The peer leadership program actually was developed as a way to allow the peers who have grown and developed coping mechanism from their challenges to help their other peers, because we know peers many times will go to peers for support, but they will not ideally go to an adult unless that problem has gone out of control and will need to be able to step in and help out. But for us, we developed that program. We trained the youth to be able to identify behavioral challenges, to be able to identify suicidal ideation. So between 2017 and 2018, the students were able to prevent 4 to 5 active suicides in Delaware. And we ended up getting some of the schools involved. If the students are trained where if something happens, the parents also know. So the parents are also part of the program. We don't do anything without the parents' involvement. So there was one incident where a student messaged another student and say, "Hey, I'm committing suicide." And it was like 2 in the morning. And just imagine if that one student was not within our program, then they would not have known how to handle it. So she went and she reached out to her mother, and she communicated with her mother what was happening because more details were provided. So the mom tried reaching out to the other parent, but they were not able to because the communication, they only had that one child's contact. So the mom actually took it upon herself to be, because we also provide parents trainings as well, and she drove over to the other home, both she and her daughter, and informed the mom what was happening upstairs. And when they went upstairs, the daughter had literally a sock of pills that she was taking. And then we had another incident where one of the moms from Texas heard of our program, so she sent her daughter up here who was being a victim of bullying down in Texas. And when she came here, she attended the program. The entire program for the summer is very intense. So they came up for the program. They started attending the program. The daughter left the Sunday, made it home. The Monday, the entire family received a text from her brother, and it was an "I love you" text. And she's like, "Mom, this is not a normal text. He might be saying I love you, but he's not really saying I love you. He's saying goodbye." And everybody else in the family was like, "Oh no, he just wanted attention. He's not really gonna do anything." And because he was also African American, and we many times they don't have that conversation around mental health. So the daughter's like, "No, mom, something is wrong." And based on what the mom said, she was the only one that was able to identify and say something was wrong. So she spoke to the mom. The mom agreed to try to locate the son. When he finally disclosed where he was, and I like doing the disclaimer that he was found at an elementary school, but it was a summer and there was no students on campus. The school was shut down. So when they made it over there, she found him, and the mom followed through, and he had a gun in his hand. And when they made it there, they ended up getting the help that is needed for him. And when he went back down to function, and he told his mom that his sign of taking his life was if no one found him when his phone died, then that means he did not matter. And his phone was at 1%. So when we think of some of the problems and some of the challenges, right now we have an increase in suicide that is happening, but we also have a pool of individuals that we can utilize to help prevent those factors. If we're not able to utilize the peers that the peers are using for support, then there's a huge gap we're missing. If we're not utilizing the siblings that the siblings are also finding for support, then when we look at program expansion, we need to be able to look at what does the support, what do their support looks like. And by analyzing that, then we need to be able to ensure what is the worst risk that can happen and how we can reduce or prevent that risk from happening. So for us, for the peer leadership, we're like, okay, the worst risk that can happen is one of the students ends up committing suicide and no one were able to identify it, and then the students end up feeling guilty. So through that conversation, we're like, okay, you know what? We will need to partner with the schools. So students who go through our programs, we also ensure that each student, in addition to the community mental health providers who we also connect with, we also connect with the schools, and we get what we call like school ambassadors. So it can be a librarian, it can be the school counselor, somewhere the students can go and help develop safe groups. So with one of the schools at St. George's, for example, one of the students developed a 360 or 365. It was a Christian Stop the Bullying group. She created that group for her to be able to have a safe space for her peers who were victims of bullying to be able to come in and to be able to share the support. But because she was a Christian, she wanted it to be able to reflect her comfort. And for us, we do not want to dictate to the students how do they open those groups. So now we're having pots of prevention programs going on within the community where the peers are opening it up and they're connecting with adults within the community to strengthen that. So then we had another student who was a victim of sexual assault from the age of 8, but she was not able to communicate with anyone and share what she was going through, because she thought that the best way of repairing the person where they were staying was for her to be able to continue having having to be a victim with this individual. So she did not realize that she could have gone and get help. So what she did is that she ended up opening a sexual assault group to help have a space where students and children who may be a victim of sexual assault will be able to get the help and will be able to talk to their peers. And we'll always come and like, okay, do you need our help? We continuously provide trainings to them, and we're like, do you need our help for us to come in and have conversations with the peers? And there will be times they're like, yes, we want you guys to come in, but we spoke to the peers, and the peers are having difficulty in trusting an adult or whatsoever. So we build up that trust to strengthen it. So these are some of the various examples of programs we have going on in Delaware, but our goal is to be able to ensure the organic development and to ensure that we're preventing something. We're not just creating programs because we want to create programs, but we're creating programs because there is a problem in the community that if we don't handle that problem, it's going to develop into a worse problem. So let us find ways for us to be able to prevent those problems. So I am going ahead. I know it is 3 o'clock and we need to be ending soon, but because this session actually started a little later, I'm just going to continue. If you need to be able to step out and leave, please feel free to do so. but we're just gonna continue with the growth. So with the growth component, we want to be able to integrate services. When the service we previously spoke about, it was not just an individual program that was developed. It was actually a program that was integrated with another program. So we had the prevention education first, where we were just going to schools and having conversations about healthy relationship, about suicide, substance abuse, and then we needed to provide more. From there, we continue providing more and more, and that's how we ended up to organically develop the peer leadership training. And now we have developed the Parents as Allies training. And the Parents as Allies training is where we train parents for them to become supporters to help prevent sexual assault, violence, and different challenges they may be facing within their families, including conversation difficulties or the age gap. So when we look at that, we're like, okay, with all the programs we're offering, why is it there's still challenges with the parents? The parents and the relationship with parents and schools are also at a disadvantage or at a loss. So that means the students themselves are having difficulties. So what can we do to help bridge those gaps? Then we're like, okay, let us create Parents as Allies. Parents as Allies is an other intensive program where we train those parents. And when they come, they learn about themselves first. They learn about the progression of challenges and what they can do and why is it important for them to partner with professionals within the community, and how they can also partner with the schools, but also reflecting upon what limitations that they have. So why exactly for you as a parent, you typically get upset if the school tell you of an issue that your child might be facing? What are some of the other ways that you can go to the school, not only when your child has problems, but also to become a supporter of that school? So these are some of the things that we're looking at when we're developing programs. So what is the next thing we want to develop? And we did not stop there. Then we also developed programs for not students, but for mental health professionals who are working with students in underserved populations or who may be having difficulties in understanding students' behaviors. So we ended up developing the DSM-5 memorization program, where we actually train mental health professionals and service providers on how to incorporate trauma lenses and cultural appropriateness when we're working with selected population. So if a person comes and they're from another country, looking at, hey, does that diagnosis fall into play for them? Or is that part of their culture? So we do not misdiagnose and we do not force our own culture upon others. But also understanding that not culture differences is not based on an individual's race per se. It is also what is that family's practice. So understanding what are the differences for us to better service the population. And in addition to that, our services go on and on. But in addition to that, it is the combination or the integration of individual services versus comprehensive services. Individual services is where you just offer one-time service and this is it, no other components to it. So we're going to focus on workforce development, and that's the only service we're going to focus on. We're not going to focus on if the person's going to get a job. We're not going to focus on would they need additional skills or additional certifications. We're just going to focus at one training and then we're going to be done. Then we want to be able to focus on community buy-in and community ownership. With all the programs we had previously spoken about, it is so important for us to be able to talk about the community buy-in. Because when you are gone or when we are gone, who is going to continue with the fulfillment of the programs that have developed? So in order for us to ensure sustainability within the program, we need to ensure that we have the community buy-in and the community involvement to ensure that, which will then strengthen the authentic collaboration and partnership. Because organizations can partner and it will be great. But when the administrators or the service providers within those organizations are gone, what happens to the community? But if you have the community buy-in in a program and organizations are collaborating, when those organizations are gone, the community will still continue to collaborate when new organizations come in, or if they themselves develop programs. So we need to be able to understand what does that look like, and understand the importance of prevention, intervention, and that collaboration is very important, because now we're looking at sustainability. If we only focus on prevention, we might say abstain, 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 and then we're not providing the intervention to it. We need to be able to ensure the combination allows us to have a greater population of success. So unlike having 75% or 60% or 50% of success, now because you integrate the two, you ensure you develop programs that widens the space for success. And then when you focus on the emotional and intellectual, which we spoke about, that helps a person develop the knowledge about the problem they're facing, but also how is that problem impacting them. And then you have the adaptation and fidelity. When you look at adaptation and fidelity, this is where a program might be developed, especially you hear many organizations and programs say, hey, we're adapting an evidence-based program. I'm like, great, but for which community? Oh, the Wilmington community. I'm like, yeah, but how exactly will that fit in the Wilmington community? A great example was one organization wanted to provide and have a community cleanup. I'm like, hey, that sounds like a great idea, but what does that look like? They're like, oh, we're just gonna do a flyer and tell the community to come out and help clean up. I'm like, okay, but are you gonna have any music? Are you gonna have any food? They're like, oh no, we didn't think of that. I'm like, well, then you're not gonna have anybody because you're not adapting to the community that you want to service. So in order for you to know how the community will be involved and to get the community buy-in, you also need to understand the community culture and how you need to adapt to the community culture. And then also identifying, when we spoke about the collaboration and partnership, individual to system level and system to individual levels. If we provide services only to individuals, then when the providers are gone, so is the program. If you offer services to the system, that does not necessarily mean that the individuals will adapt the policy change or anything that's happening, because you see it over and over. Policies will be created, but not everyone will be following it. A great percentage of want to adapt or follow it. But if you integrate the two and you provide individual services to system services and system services to individual services, you have a greater chance of collaboration and strengthen whatever program you want to develop, because the community wants to know that they have a part to play with it. We know that when we provide policies, those policies will help implement some change, but at what percentage of the community? And then we also want to be able to incorporate trauma lenses and cultural appropriateness. So trauma lenses, with that, we want to ensure that whoever we're working with, we're also analyzing, we're applying empathy, we're applying consideration to the population, but we're also trying to understand what difficulties or what barriers or what challenges are making life more difficult for you to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And cultural appropriateness is, am I understanding, not just understanding, but am I able to apply what you're teaching me so I can be I can have a clearer understanding of what you are going through. Because yes, we can have cultural sensitivity and cultural competency, but does that mean I am able to walk in your shoes to better understand what you're going through? Because if I'm not able to understand what you are going through, then whatever services I'm trying to provide, it may not suit me, because you have not yet made it to the close proximity that I need you to, for you to better understand the challenges I am going through. And then we were going to do a small group. I would like you guys to just get into a small group and identify some of the identify an issue, and then think of a sustainable program you wish to develop or to solve from that issue will be solving. So you're gonna go through and you're gonna develop that and think of innovative strategies that you see or you can use. And then as you guys do that, we're gonna come back and break you up into groups. We're gonna play this one video and we're gonna go back into groups. So as we're going through, this is the end of one of the intensive programs that we provided to them. When they came, the students needed to develop a program and or an outcome, and for them they wanted to create an outcome on human trafficking. We did not give them any ideas as to what to select, and they're like, okay, we think right now there is an increase in human trafficking, so this is what we want to create. So they we helped them in creating the script. So they gave the wordings, they gave everything, and we kind of flow it through together because we have professionals to be able to help them out, and this is what they were able to develop. So when we overall go and we look at what service expansions, we need to be able to understand that service expansion is not just going out and seeing a problem and just providing a program. We need to analyze how long this program will be able to sustain that solution. And if that solution we're trying to develop is not sustainable for long run, yes, we can offer that program, but we'll need to develop it to ensure that it continue to sustain the problem we're seeing. And even with our absence, that program will still be able to continue to fill a need within the community. So with that being said, I would like to thank everyone who have joined us, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the community. Have a wonderful time. Bye.